Good morning and welcome to this Asia Scotland Institute vidcast. My name is Doug Cook and I'm the Institute Director. And I'm delighted this morning that we'll be talking to Megan Gaffney about her sporting achievements and about her involvement in the School of Hard Knocks charity. So Megan, a very warm welcome to you from the Asia Scotland Institute and its members. And we're very much looking forward to learning more about you and Scotland Women's Rugby. By way of introduction for our audience, Megan Gaffney hails from North Berwick. She has played for Scotland at under-18s, Scotland Women's A, Scotland under-20s, Scotland Women's and Scotland Women's Sevens. I believe you made your international debut off the bench against the Netherlands in Amsterdam in 2011, and you were selected to play for the GB team at the World Student Games Sevens in Brive in 2012, and I think GB went on to win that tournament. Out with rugby, you represented Scottish schools in under-17s athletics, and while completing a Masters in Sports Policy, Management and International Development at the University of Edinburgh, you were the Edinburgh University's women's squad. You were in the Edinburgh University women's squad, which won 3 universities and college sports titles in 2016 and 17. So significant achievements in sport, and well done to you for that. But I'd like to discover a little bit more about your sporting achievements and how you manage sport with your working life. But recognising that we have a large community of university student membership, I suspect that you can also provide some valuable advice to them on managing sport alongside your academic studies. But to start, perhaps you could just tell me a little bit about growing up and how you got into sport and rugby in particular.
So I grew up in North Berwick, which is a lovely little town, and I was always a really sporty child. I had tried everything, just loved being out and about, running around. And I can't actually remember how I started rugby, but I started when I was 6 or 7. I went down to North Berwick Minis. I think I was one of only 2 girls on the team. And it was a bit odd because nobody in my family is particularly rugby. My dad used to run the football club, but I think I probably didn't want to do that because my brother did that. And it was just, I think, an opportunity to be really competitive. I don't think there was many options for girls in the town, for girls that age, to really be like that. I think there was sort of ballet and then there was tennis and stuff in the summer, but it wasn't something that was encouraged particularly, I don't think. And I really loved like the physicality of it, rough and tumble. And I think I just enjoyed being one of the boys. Up until then, I've done things like ballet, a bit of hockey, but rugby really captured me. And I just played from there. I sort of dipped in and out a bit with all the other stuff I was doing. But then I started to play seriously when I was about 17, just when I left school and I joined Murrayfield Wanderers. But yeah, I loved it, and the people you met there and the people that have helped me, I still reference them today, and it's been some journey, but it's nice to think that it started when I was so young.
And I think all sport has a unifying capability about it, but I think rugby in particular, because it's potentially more aggressive as a sport, but a large team as well. I mean, is that something that you've found along in your involvement in sport?
Yeah, definitely. So I've done team sports and individual sports, and I always gravitate back to the team sports. I did athletics for a long time, and it was fine if you were doing well and winning races, but if you weren't, it was a really lonely place to be. So I found that with rugby, you've always got someone there supporting you. There's always somebody who can sort of pull you along if you're struggling, and then other way around, if you're feeling good, that you can help other people out. And I feel like the friends that I've made through rugby are the best friends that I've got in my life, and I've got friends all over the world now, which is really cool. And yeah, I love it. It's such a good community, and especially with women's rugby, it's so small. I lived in New Zealand for a year, and there was people there that knew people that I'd played with at home, and people that were living in Hong Kong knew people that I played with in Canada, and it's just really cool, and it's great to feel like a community.
It does strike me that the women's game is very much on the upward trajectory, and it can only get more stronger, I think. Is that your sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you compare the number of women's and girls teams now to when I was starting out, so when I was 6 or 7, there wasn't really any that I knew of, and now a lot of towns have their own team, a lot of schools have started up their own team. I think the women's leagues have had to restructure because there's so many teams, and like Scottish Rugby did a lot of work at the grassroots, getting more girls involved, and you can really see that now. The success of the women's team the national team is going up and up and up, and we're now attracting, we've got girls playing from a lot younger, so their skills are a lot better, and we've also started to attract women from other sports are coming across. So I think it's great, and as you said, my first cap was nearly 10 years ago, which is making me feel really old. But to see the game progress in that time and to be part of it is crazy. Worldwide, I think with sevens going to the Olympics, that's really sort of opened it up to a wider audience. People that didn't know as much about it are taking notice. And then if you look at teams like New Zealand and England women, they're among like some of the best teams in the world. And they're, well, England are anyway, their success is higher than their men's team at the moment, which I think is really cool, and they're getting a lot of attention. So any publicity is good for the whole game around the world.
Absolutely, yes. Your sporting triumphs are obviously self-evident, but could you tell me a little bit more about your sort of proudest sporting achievements, or any particular disappointments?
I think some of my proudest, obviously getting my first cap was a big moment, and I was only 19 at the time and I wasn't expecting it at all. So that was, like, I didn't expect it to come that quickly. I thought I'd be a bit older, but that was really something. I'd always wanted to represent Scotland at something, and I had it in athletics, but never at a senior level. I think being included in the initial squad for Rio 2016 was really cool as well. So there was only 2 Scottish girls that went down, and I was one of them. And I didn't make the final team, but it was a chance to train as a full-time player, which I didn't think I'd get the opportunity to do. And I also got to play with some of the best players in the world. Some of the English girls at that time were outstanding, and learned so much from them, and I really value that experience. And I think as well, playing for Edinburgh Uni and winning the Bucks Cup final on Twickenham it's just such a good memory. And I was only there for a year, but we achieved so much in that year, that's got to be up there as well. I think disappointments, I don't think I've had that many, which I don't know if that sounds cocky or just the way that I kind of view things. Obviously not making the final squad for Rio was disappointing, but as well, looking back, I probably wasn't ready. Like, I know I wasn't good enough compared to the other players that were there. Hopefully next year I'll get another chance. I've been really lucky with injuries, so I haven't missed too much due to injury. I think I've been really lucky, actually. And even when things don't go well, like, I know that that's part of it, and it's how you use that moment to make yourself better rather than dwelling on the disappointments.
I mean, your point about positivity, I think, is important for any sportsman. Is that something that you think is also very relevant?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that I've worked on as well. I think when you're younger and you come through the age groups, and you can always be quite dominant in the age groups, and then when you come into a senior setting, it's a bit of a shock to the system and you're brought down a peg or two. But I think in general I'm quite a positive person, and I like to think that I influence others with that, and that I can help people through if they're feeling disappointed about things. But I mean, I play sport because I love it, and if I wasn't enjoying it I wouldn't do it, so I try not to get bogged down in too much and just keep it fun.
I mean, turning to sort of other things, I mean, despite your rugby achievements, you still obviously have to work, and I know you work for the charity School of Hard Knocks. Could you tell me a little bit more about that organisation and your role in it?
Yeah, so School of Hard Knocks are a social inclusion charity who use the values of rugby to deliver programmes in both schools, and they work with adults as well to try and help them re-engage with society. So in schools, it'll be with pupils that are struggling, maybe academically, maybe their attendance isn't great, their behaviour is affecting how much they can achieve. And they can be there for up to 3 years, and they'll work with the kids every week, and they'll have a rugby session, like a classroom session, learning some personal skills, and they'll do one-on-one mentoring as well. So if there's any issues, the kids have somebody that they can talk to. The adults program, which I work on mostly, is a shorter term intervention, so courses of about 6 to 8 weeks. And these are designed mainly for adults who are unemployed, to help them get back into work, but it can be open to anyone who is just looking to make positive changes and step forward with their life. In those ones, it will be 2 days a week usually, and it'll be pretty similar setup. We'll do a couple of rugby sessions a day. We'll do sessions on personal development, growth mindset, fears and barriers, things like that. And then we'll also do employability skills. So where to look for a job, how to find a job, interview skills, all that kind of stuff. And during that 8-week course, they will get a mock interview. So we'll go to offices, maybe Sky, we've been to them quite a lot, and they'll go through the interview process, and we find that that's a big confidence builder for them, so they can the participants understand that like they can do it and it's not as scary as it seems. And the other thing which is really cool is at the end of each course, the participants will play as a team against another rugby squad, and so it's a great end to the 8 weeks. And a lot of the people that come in, particularly the women, haven't played rugby at all, and you see them progress over the 8 weeks, and then at the end they'll play against a club. And I think quite a few of them keep on with rugby after. They really enjoy the environment, and they join clubs after. And we've got a really good success rate with people going into either work or education or further training. And I think the stat that we always bring up is 88% of people that attend the adults courses feel like their mental well-being has improved, which I think is pretty impressive when it's only 8 weeks long. So,
and presumably very rewarding to be involved with.
Yeah, definitely. So I've only been working full-time with them since August last year, but I absolutely love it, and it's so great to have a job that doesn't feel like work and also fits in around rugby. They're so accommodating. I'm very, very lucky. And I feel like I've completely landed on my feet. And it's nice for me to have my rugby, which is very serious and sort of elite, but then also see rugby at its core and the grassroots and how it can change people's lives. So yeah, I absolutely love it.
And I suspect that they, working with an athlete of your pedigree, that's important to them, because it's taking them seriously, and presumably that, the whole part of this charity, it seems to me, is instilling confidence in these individuals, and that's part of that process.
Yeah, I think we're really lucky. So the charity is UK wide, and one of the Welsh women players works for them in Wales. And then there's a couple of the English girls who are ambassadors that do bits and pieces in England, and then there's me and another couple of girls that do things in Scotland. So I think it's great for the participants and the children in schools to see how relatable we are, and that we're just sort of nice normal people, and we can share our experience of rugby, and that encourages them to try. And I think that's the first thing. People can be quite set in their ways, but if we can encourage them to try something different, then you really start to see a change.
Obviously you've been affected by COVID like everybody else, but tell me how it's affected you personally and training and rugby.
So the sort of first thing was we were due in the middle of Six Nations when it all sort of kicked off. So we had 2 games cancelled where we were already in camp ready to play, and we had to postpone them. And then our final one was called off a few days before. So that was sort of the initial thing. And now, obviously, same as everyone else in lockdown. So I've been training, and to be honest, I'm not finding it too stressful. I've got myself a little routine. I'll get up, go and do some running at the pitch, and come back and normally do something else in the afternoon. But I'm very aware that it's the same for everyone. So even on days where it all feels a bit tough, just have to get on with it really and understand that it's not going to be forever. We've also been doing within the squad, both my club and some of the Scotland girls, we've been doing Zoom workouts. So somebody will design a workout and everyone will log in and we'll go through it together and have a bit of a chat after, which is always quite nice. I find sometimes when you're running by yourself, it's just a bit of a drag really, and you're not really aware of how hard you're pushing yourself. So it's nice to log in and get other people's chat and sort of feed off their energy. But I'm also finding that I've got more time to do things that I neglect a little bit. So I've been doing a lot more stretching, a bit of yoga type stuff, a bit of rehab that I've maybe could have spent more time on during the season. So that's been quite nice. And I think it's really important for us, obviously, to keep ourselves in shape so that when the call comes in that we are going back, that we're sort of not too far away from peak fitness, and also we don't injure ourselves. But as well, we don't know when that's going to be, so you don't want to burn yourself out so that when we do have the opportunity to play again, you're knackered and you can't do anything. So it's a balance, and I think I've got it right. And I think the weeks are going really quickly now, just ticking them off, and hopefully it won't be too long till we're back together.
I think certainly a delicate balance. I mean, we've seen some of the Premier League football players coming back in and just going out with injury and all that sort of issue. So, just perhaps as an aside, but have you taken up any new skills or any new pursuits during lockdown?
So I tried to learn to juggle and wasn't great at it. I can do like one round and then it all falls apart. I've been doing quite a lot of jigsaws. I've got really into tie-dyeing, so I've been tie-dyeing all my old rugby socks so that they've got a new lease of life. We're really lucky here in North Berwick. We've got the beach and there's loads of paths and stuff around, so I've been trying to do some cycling, but I'm just really not a cyclist, and no matter how often I do it, I just find it so difficult. But I've been trying that. What else have I been doing? I've been doing a couple of online courses just to keep the brain ticking over. So I've been doing one on mental first aid, which I think will be really useful with work. And I've started one on nutrition, but that one's a bit dry.
So you have been busy. So and you've still got the buzz for study. Perhaps I could just talk about your time at Edinburgh University. And I just, it's clearly not easy being a sportsman as well as doing studies. But what can you comment on that? What advice could you perhaps give to students?
So I was very lucky when I was at Edinburgh. They've got a really great programme, and women's rugby was one of their most supported sports. So I could do all of my training pretty much at the uni, and I had a flat that was right next to the gym. So it was just very stress-free. I had all my S&C there, the physio cover if I needed it. Everything was very well organised. Games were, because our games were quite far away, a lot of them were in England, so they were really well organised so that it was the shortest amount of time you would be away from uni. If I needed time off for international stuff, that was all sort of taken care of, and if I had to move deadlines around or anything like that. I remember one time I had to do a presentation and I had to do it early because we were going away, so it was just me and one lecturer in a room, which was a bit odd, but like you just had to do what you had to do. And I think, so I did my undergrad at Glasgow, and I think they've got a really good programme now, but then it wasn't really a thing. So a lot of that sort of stuff I had to take on myself. And obviously I was younger then, and I found that quite a lot, got bogged down a bit with all the travelling and trying to juggle everything. But I think for me it was just being really well organised. So if you knew you had deadlines, don't leave them to the last minute. Easier said than done. And if I knew I had a busy competition block coming up or whatever, that I just had things planned out. I also worked through that as well. So I worked in a bar as well. So I didn't probably get as much sleep as I would have wanted, but you just get through it. I think, especially a female athlete, because of, and in rugby, funding and stuff, you're just used to getting on and doing it. And as long as you're organised, there's no reason why not. But also I would say, if you are struggling, ask for help, because there is help out there. And it's better to ask before it's too late. And if it is that you have to take a bit of time off training to get things done, then that 2 or 3 weeks is going to be nothing compared to what happens if everything else falls apart. So just stay on top of everything and make sure you're talking to people.
You were obviously doing very, very well in terms of representation for rugby. Am I right in understanding you took a gap year at that time? And I just wondered whether that was a valuable experience, and was it a difficult decision to make, perhaps?
So I've actually done it twice. After I graduated from Glasgow, I went to Sweden for a year to play rugby and to live out there and just have a different experience. And then I did it again after my masters. I went out to Australia and played in New Zealand for a season. And I think for me, the reason behind that was I was tired. I had obviously been doing studying, working, training, playing for a long time, and I knew more mentally than anything I just needed a break. And also travel, like I love traveling, and it's one of the reasons that I play rugby, because you get to go all these cool places. But just with the way the seasons work, you don't often get a lot of time to go off and do what you want, really. And I felt like if I didn't do it then, I might not get the opportunity. And it was something that was really important to me that I wanted to do. And I think for me, rugby was never going to be the career that paid all my bills or whatever. So I didn't want it to sort of overtake everything. And I feel like when I came back, I was so motivated and so focused on what I wanted that I was performing better. Whereas if I'd sort of pushed myself through when I was feeling a bit run down, that I might have started to really not enjoy it and might have dropped out that way, and that would have been awful.
Both those countries, and amazing possibilities if you are traveling and living there, to learn more things and learn, meet more people, etc.
Yeah, so Sweden was, obviously rugby is a lot smaller there, the sport's a lot smaller, so that was interesting to see how they were building their game from basically nothing. And then when I was in New Zealand, obviously it was the biggest, it's the best country for rugby in the world, and it's so different the way they approach sport in general. It's strange out there if you're a girl and you don't play sport, whereas here sometimes it feels like if you're really sporty, you're sort of out of the norm. But because they've all played so many different sports from such a young age, they can all pass, they can all catch, they're all really fast. The club I was with had a lot of Polynesian islanders, so all the girls were massive. I've never felt so small, but it was a different game, and it was so fun. And I got to play in their Barra Parma Cup, which is their sort of provisional tournament. So was playing against World Cup winners. There was one of the Blackfern's best players was on the same team as me. So it was a bit surreal, but I'm so glad I did it. And I feel like I've brought a lot of that back to my game across here. Yeah.
You remind me of some of my exploits playing rugby in the army against the Fijians, who were twice as big as we were and so much more powerful. But anyway, so perhaps to finish, perhaps I could ask you, what are your plans for the future in sport and more generally?
So the initial focus for me over the next year is to qualify for the World Cup with Scotland women, to hopefully qualify for the World Series with the Sevens. I would love to go to the Olympics. Obviously that's been put back a year, but we're just looking at that as positively as we can. It's another year to get fitter, better, like improve our skills. So that's very much on my radar. And the Women's World Cup is next October 2021. So that's something I've never been to. Scotland women, last time they were there I think was 2010, so before I even got my first cap. So that would be an amazing sort of pinnacle of a career. And then post that, I'm not sure, like hopefully the Commie Games with the Sevens. It would be great to go on some more tours with Scotland. I am aware that I'm probably getting towards the end of my career, so I've got half an eye on what I want to do after, work-wise, but I would love to stay within rugby, hopefully with School of Hard Knocks if they'll keep me. But yeah, I feel like everything I do with rugby is just adding to what I can do after, all the connections you make and the things you learn. So it's really exciting.
I find it quite strange. Somebody as young as you are talking about the end of their sporting.
I know, well, it's just crept up on me. There's one girls now who I was speaking to one of my friends yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, I left school 11 years ago," and she was like, "I was 10 then," and I was like, "Oh God, I feel so old." But when you're in a team, you don't really notice it.
I think the good thing though is obviously Scottish Women's Rugby, and that team is doing much better and much stronger, and so I think there's lots of room for optimism in terms of for both the Olympics and other competitions going forward.
Yeah, and the management setup we have at the moment is brilliant. We've got Philip Doyle, who just came in this year, and you can already see the improvements that he's brought in. It was a shame that we didn't get to play all our Six Nations games, because I felt like we were definitely on and up. And it would have been great to play against Wales again, because we played them in the autumn and we lost pretty heavily, and we really weren't happy with that. So it would have been good to see what the return game would have been like. But it's all building towards qualification for 2021. That's our main goal as a squad. So as long as we perform when it matters, that's our main concern. But it's the strongest squad I've ever been a part of, and the culture is really good. Everyone's got on the same page, everyone's working for each other. And even now when we're sort of all possibly like doing our own sort of training, whatever we've got access to, you know that everyone's still working towards that same goal, which when you're feeling a bit, oh, can't be bothered today, you know that other people are working for it, and that's what gets you through. So
Megan, thank you. It's been a delight talking to you, and we wish you well, obviously, for the future. We wish the squad very well. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences in sport and your own personal experiences, and particularly about the School of Hard Knocks, which is a charity to be commended. So on behalf of all of our members, I'd like to extend our thanks to you. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. I've enjoyed that.